everywhere. So that means everywhere we want to use this count variable, it would automatically update uniformly across the page. We don't have to keep track of where we're using it. We can both take it away and add new ones at will. And that's just one of the million motivating reasons why we use React, is this combination of logic and actually being able to display. Because in HTML, you might have remembered it was very separate. We had to do the HTML part and then the JavaScript part. React allows us to combine them both. Is it recording? Yeah, cool. And sweet. So this is, again, is still very basic, and to kind of show you what real use cases for things like this are like full scale applications, and that is what React is. It's actually made by Facebook or Meta now, but that's what large scale web applications are built using. That is what it's for. And so I can bring up like, yeah.
Before we move on to that, does anyone have any questions about that, kind of how that works and how it's different than what we did last week with that count? Last week we had to do three things. We had to look at the existing number, grab it, update its value, and then put it back. Here, all we have to do is update the value. That's the only thing we have to do. We do that using this set function. So I just pass it a new value. That's text, kind of weird, but we're used to it. And whatever new value I pass in here, update them. So all we're doing is taking the current value and increasing it by one. Yes.
On the code. Yeah.
Any questions about the difference between them? And I never have to go to the page to grab this value. This right here, whatever the value this is, always matches what's on the page.
Cool. So what we can actually do is, I don't know if any of you guys took a look at the thing I sent a few hours ago. I didn't really expect any of you guys to, but what we can do is show you how React really scales well when making repetitive content. So have you guys, I'm assuming you guys are to the point, at least those of you in 101, that you guys have used functions, right, at this point? So what's really nice about functions is when you write the same code multiple places, you can kind of take that code out into a function and just call that function everywhere, which is like super awesome. And let's say we wanted to put this, count thing in 6 different places. That could get really tedious. It would be really nice if we could make a function for HTML, basically. And that's exactly what React allows us to do. So right now I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm just going to make an empty div here, and I'm going to get rid of this use state. So we have a blank page here, and I can get rid of this at the top now. So we have a blank page, and just for the sake of example, I'm going to show you how we can make a basic YouTube video, YouTube homepage like kind of thing. So when I refer to a function like thing that can make HTML, in React, what that is called is a component. And so if we want to make a component, I'm just going to create a new folder inside of source. And just to go over a little bit of what these files mean, as you can see, a React project is fairly packed with random stuff in here. A lot of these things you are never going to touch. Like TS config, you're never going to ever bother touching that. But when we write code in a React project, almost all of it is going to go to SRC, which is source. So I'm going to make a new component. And to do that, I'm going to create a new folder inside of source called components. And that's just where, whenever we create a new component, that's where we're going to put it. So let's go ahead and make that new component. And we're going to do that by making a new file. And this file is we're going to call this video, because we're making a YouTube video, .tsx. If you remember, TS was the TypeScript file extension for those of you that use Java. It's like .java, C++, it's .cpp. It's just .ts. It's TSX for this, and that specifies that it's not quite entirely TypeScript. TSX is the React syntax, and it allows your VS Code to make some helpful tools. So what we can do is, just like I said, we can make a function, is we can make function video. And then what we can do, and this is really nice, is we can return HTML. So we're just going to say video component. Now, we've made this function, and this function returns HTML, but we need other files in this project to be able to see this. And this is where we can do an export. And we're going to say export default. And all export default says is just take this video function that I just wrote and allow other places in your file system here, other files, to be able to reference it or call this function. So we export it, and then let's go to our app. The way I like to think about app.tsx is it's your main function in Java, it's your main function in C++, right? It's like what runs. You can almost think of it as like the home page, and anything that we're going to be doing right now, we're going to put it in our main function, which is app. So the way you actually refer to a React component, and I like to also think of a component as essentially writing a customized HTML tag. So we're going to call video, and it's a self-closing tag, just like that. And as you can see, VS Code has given us a little error here. And if we hover over it, oh, I can't find the name. Oh, yeah. So this is because we need to import this. Just like we exported it, we need to import it. So we need to import the video component from /components and then /video. And as you can see, we no longer get this error. And you just want to make sure you always follow this workflow. If you're exporting something and you need to use it, you always import it as well. Cool. So now we can see that this video tag here, or our video component, is now being put onto our page. So we need to make this video component a little bit more interesting now. We need to make it actually look like a YouTube video. So I don't want to get too much into what HTML we're going to really be writing for this. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and copy paste. So let's see, components. Let's just rip this. Put this back in here. Yeah, this is a little weird to think about. Are there any confusing things so far you'll follow in? Cool. So, anything, yeah. Yeah, doesn't look like a YouTube video. We need to actually style this. And what's really cool about React as well is it makes it really easy to add a separate file for you to put your styles in. Now, we didn't go over putting styles in a separate file last week because you're not going to be using direct HTML as much, but this is actually pretty common. And again, CSS is just kind of a pain, so going to be copy pasting that as well. And I've added in that repository I sent to you guys, there are some comments here that go through it, and you can feel free to look at all of this stuff. So now, just like we imported all our component into the app file, we can actually import this CSS and import our styling. So import, it'll be /video.css. Cool. Now, it at least resembles a YouTube video a little bit more. And I'm not claiming to be an actual stylist, so this is about as good as we're going to get here. So what's really nice is that, but remember, think of this as like a function. So if we go back to our main. Oh, like the side-by-side?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then. So yeah, just going to make this side-by-side. So we have our main over here on the left and our component over here on the right. So what we can do is, just like we can, call a function multiple times, is we can actually make our component multiple times. And if we pull back up the thing here, you can actually see that we've made, a list of videos now. The only problem is that they're all the exact same. So it'd be really nice if there was a way to make it certain parts of this configurable to where we can pass in values and they would each be different. And again, this is where this function analogy really shines, is that you can think of this exactly like function parameters. And so if you have a function that, adds two numbers, you take in two numbers, and then when you call that function, you pass it in two numbers. So we can do that in React using something that has a little bit of a different name. Go for it. I'll set it up.
So kind of what this is doing right now, this over here is the component, the video component. We're using that 3 times, just like we do HTML. When we write this, say video, 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 the equivalent of just putting all this code, putting it here 3 times. This just lets us reuse that code very easily without having to copy paste it.
Sweet. So what's really nice is that we can actually make it so that our function or our component can take in parameters. And we do that using something called props. So what we can do is define a TypeScript interface, and interfaces, they're not very, not too difficult to think about. This is actually really simple. So we're going to define an interface called video props. Exactly. Have you guys used like member variables in a class yet and stuff? No? Okay. Well, then that's one. Yeah. So if you were to use member variables, it's similar to that. But what we can do here is we're just going to say, the video title, and we're going to give it the type of a string. And we're going to say the profile who posted it. And that's also going to be a string. So what we need to do now is change our function to accept these parameters. And so we're going to give it props, and we're going to give it the type, because that's what an interface does, is create a type, video props. Cool. Are you guys still following this? Does this still make sense? Any questions on this so far? Just don't let the word interface scare you. It's really not too complicated.
So that right there is saying, when we have a video, we want to be able to bring in a title and a profile. That's a profile picture.
Profile name. I'll change that.
That's what that is saying right there. Just like you can follow function. Here we pass in props, which contains a title and a profile name.
Yeah. Cool. So just to show you where we would use this is, let's see, where is the profile title or the video title? So this is where the title is. And if you remember in the very first counter example where we had the braces and that count value, and it would just put that 0 or that 1 or that 2 on the screen, we do the exact same thing here where we use the braces, and we can write props dot, and then we'll write the title. And then down here, we'll do the same thing. And it's just props dot profile name. And you can see that this interface, all it does is it gives us, I'm going to use the word field. Just think of it as like a part of the interface. So right here, we're using the title part. Right here, we're using the profile part. It's pretty simple. So why are these red over? Yeah, so as you can see, now we're getting a little bit of an error over here. And that's because we're not passing in those parameters that we want to. So I'm going to get rid of this third video here. But let's say we can, if you remember in HTML where you would do class equals, and in the quote you would give it the class name. Exactly right there. What we can do is, because we've basically made a customized HTML tag, is we'll write title, because that's one of the things we want. And title is going to equal, sweet, I did copy it, that. And then the profile name is going to be the name of the profile posted. And then actually just going to reformat this so you can see it. Sweet. So now you can see on this top one, we no longer get this error. And it's happier now because we've passed in the properties that we wanted to give it. And I'll just do that same thing down for this one. Title equals second bit type. And then profile name equals Oh, P file though. Oh well. Cool. Now, if we go back to our video thing, you can actually see. Let's zoom in on this. You can actually see that these are different now, and that they've allowed us to reuse that HTML that we wrote, but also configure it at the exact same time. And that's super useful. Any questions on that so far?
Okay, good.
Yes.
Just to reiterate what we just did. We have one video here, which is all of this code. And then we say, this is the title, this is the profile name. Then we go over here, you just go left.
Yep. Oh, left. This way.
Expect a title and a profile name. So it takes both of these things and puts them inside of this props thing right here. And then you say props dot title. So that grabs this title, puts it right here, and then same with the profile name. And then for the second video, does the exact same thing, but with the other title and profile name that we specified.
Cool. So some of you might remember from the first lesson, I doubt many of you do, but what you can do, no, that's on me, not on you guys. You can actually define optional parts of an interface. So let's say we wanted to give a YouTube video like a like counter, or yeah, we'll give it a like counter or views, whatever it wanted to be. So we'll say like count, and we'll give it a type of number, but we want it to be optional, right? We don't want every video to have this. So what we can do is add this question mark. And even though we've added a new property now, neither of these videos give us an error because it's optional. We don't have to pass it in. So what if we do want to pass one in? Well, I'll just create an extra thing here. An H3 class. That doesn't matter. So, and then we'll give it like count. And then just like we do the others with the props, we'll do the braces, props dot like count. Cool. And if we go back, nothing has changed because, well, something's changed. It looks a lot worse now. If we, because I added that extra H3 tag, but there's no like count anywhere, or you can see the text, but there's no number. And the reason there's no number is because we've not passed in a number to any of the videos yet. So what we can do is on one of the videos, because it doesn't have to be both, it's optional. So we can do like count, and that could be, I don't know, that. And now if we go back, if I formatted this a little bit better, you'd be able to see that there is now a like count on this one and there's not on this one. And that is just where the nice thing about using TypeScript and React is this would be a ton of work if you were to do this in strictly HTML and JavaScript. And it feels easy. I mean, it feels like when we just wrote this in like what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? With some copy pasted code, we wrote it in like 15 minutes. But think about how long this would take in something like HTML, where every time we want to create a new video, we have to do this whole process all over again with a new set of parameters each time. It gets very complicated.
You would have to, with a little bit of nuance, you would have to copy paste all of this code and actually paste it in 5 different times. Manually change each of the titles. Yeah.
And think about each time a new video is posted, there's not some dude at YouTube sitting there waiting for a video to get posted and then writes the HTML. So that's where something like this is, where we can, think about using a for loop where you just call a function over and over again. You can just use a for loop and make a bunch of videos. And it's that simple to make really, really versatile and scalable web applications like this with pretty relative ease. Cool. That was very quick for all of this stuff. Are there any things that are confusing or any things you just kind of have questions on? There's a lot of files over here on the left, a lot of folders over here. Anything? Nothing?
Is that it?
That is it. There, we can do some more, but
We could maybe have a function that returns an array of those. And put that function call in maybe,
like a map.
not a map, but just like if you put a function there and it returns those two in an array.
You want to do that? Go for it,
What
bro.
else can we do?
I was thinking maybe doing like dynamic rendering, where it just read the values from an array.
Yeah.
Cool. So, this was actually the last step in the GitHub repo. Oh, you do have a question? Yes.
So if, let's say, like on YouTube,
Mhm.
my counter goes up every time you click it.
Yeah.
Is that like what we did like that?
With that, like
ago,
that use state thing.
where when you like click each button, it will
Mhm.
count it up and you can like import that value into the function?
Yes. So the way you can think about that is when you click that like button on YouTube, what that's doing is going to a database, which we'll talk about in a little bit, not today, but in the future. That goes to a database and it'll say that this video has this amount of likes. So I don't know, when PewDiePie posts a video and it has 100,000 likes, that 100,000 is stored in a database. And then when you see it, in the way that we have these props right here, that basically this, where these props are coming from, would be that database, if that makes sense. So instead of us passing in a 4,000 right here, it would be like asking the database how many likes does this video have. It would be like 100,000, and that's where this would come from, basically. Does that kind of answer your question? That's a good question. Do you have anything to say to that, Andrew, to add? No? Cool. Good question. Anything else?
Would it be too much to implement like counters on this?
Like each time you press it with you say do it? We can pretty quick.
Yeah.
Cool. So
Let's make that.
yeah.
Not hitting a database, but.
No, we won't hit a database, but we can actually add a like counter pretty quick. So we can get rid of this. And get rid of this here. And to kind of show what he's saying we can do is what? Oh yeah. Cool. So to use useState, we have to import that. So from React, you can think of React as like a list of things that we can use. We'll import use state from React.
Should doing that automatically because I've never once typed that out.
Sure, yeah.
Alternatively,
So what VS Code is really nice about doing is you can do something, and this syntax I'll explain in just a second. So we'll have like count, set like count, we'll use state. And if I hit enter without importing it, it will import it at the top for me, which is very, very nice. Now, when I say the 0 here, in the parentheses, this is setting an initial value or initializing it. And all it's saying is that we're starting at 0. Now we can say, just to show you that this works, I'll set it to 10. But now we need to actually use this value here. Do you want to go over? Actually, I'll talk about that. Oh, you did? Is that while I was recording? Okay. Cool. So now we want to use it. And I'll just down here make a quick little p tag, and I'll just put the like count. Now, when we go back to the videos, now that is so ugly. Yeah. Like here.
I don't think it'd be lower.
Yeah. Oh, like, yeah. Well, maybe that makes it look a little better. Okay, it's easier to see. So this like count value, remember we set it to 10 to start. And now what we want to do is we want to make a button that each time we press the button, it will add 1 to that. We can, not that. Let's use, if we go back to the code. So now we've used the actual value, but now we need to use the associated function to actually set that value. So what we want to do is add one more thing where we're going to make a button, and then we're going to write on click equals, and then I think it's curly braces, right, Andrew? Yeah. So we write this function. All this is saying is we're creating a function right here, and it's going to do set like count, and then what is it? Like count plus one. Like count plus one. Remember, that's almost the exact same thing as what we wrote in the original HTML way back when. So there's a button.
Just reiterate, we'll have a button. When we click this button, just get right here. You can explain that and all. I think it's good to skip over for now.
Yeah, so that's what's called in TypeScript and JavaScript is called an anonymous function.
Don't get too far into it.
No. I'm saying all you can think about it right now is that it's just a function without a name. Don't think about it too hard. It's a little weird. They'll become really, really easy, really second nature to you pretty quickly, but
For now, all this says is call this line of code.
exactly, yeah. I hate JavaScript for that.
And then we call set like count, so we're trying to update how many likes are on a video. So all that we need to do is take how many likes are on the video right now, and add one to it, and that's the new value. So if we have 10 likes right now, and then we click this button, we'll take 10 plus 1, set that to be the new value of how many.
Sweet. And what we can actually do is duplicate this. And instead of +1, we can do a -1. And we can dislike the video because YouTube can do that. So, God, dude.
That's fun.
Okay, yeah, we'll just use this. We'll use the very bottom as an example here. So, if we like the video, we can do what you said, Andy. We can make it go up. We can make it go down if we don't like it. And that's just another.
We can also dislike this video up here at the top.
We can't like it.
Change independently of this. Go back to the code real quick. So this video right here has its own like count. It's got its own this chunk of code in it. So it has its own like count. And this second video also has its own separate like count. So we can adjust both of those separately.
Cool. So basically, all this stuff that React is really good for is mainly this component stuff. That is what React is like super nice for. It allows you to create very reusable things that you can kind of use like puzzle pieces to, slowly build out larger applications. It becomes a pretty easy workflow that you get used to of, I need this thing here, make a component for it, put the component on the screen, rinse and repeat. And so, yeah, like if you need a map, you make a map component. You need a nav bar, you make a nav bar component.
Some example uses are if you need to have like a header and a footer on every single page, you can make a header component and then just put header on every single page. Something that we did last year is if you have a table that you want to be very like generic and able to use it in a lot of ways, you can just make a table component. And what that does is you give it whatever data you want. It can be different kinds of data, and it displays the data you give it. And then you use that all over your website a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
I think the last thing to do would be to go over GitHub steps to pull this down.
Yeah. So, I did send a message in the Discord earlier. Dude, that is dying. Where is it? So, I created a GitHub repository that contains all of this stuff and actually a little bit more that we're not going to go into right now. But let's see. I'll show you guys, and this will be on this video. So, if you don't want to follow along, you don't have to. But what?
Don't pay attention if you don't.
Yeah, don't care. You can rewatch. But just to show you guys how you can actually get what we just made and a little bit more information and text about it and have it cloned to your personal machine is if we go to GitHub at this link, which I sent the link in the Discord, and we hit code and we can copy this URL. And then if we go to VS Code, I'll actually just make a fresh window. And we go over here to our source control. It looks like 3 dots with some lines. Don't know what to call that. And we hit clone repository. Oh, how do you do it?
I was doing the term. That's
I
cool.
would do it. So we can then paste our URL in here, and you can see it'll say clone from the URL. We do that, and then we just choose any spot in our file system that we want to put it. So I'll just put it in the desktop for now. Select as the location, and it'll say, do you want to open it? I'll say yes. And here we are. So now we have this repository, and on this main branch here, there's nothing. There's something I think Xavier was going to put here, but it's actually empty. So don't pay attention to that. But if we change branches, if by clicking this down here at the bottom left, what we can do is switch to any of these branches that start with like an origin slash, and they will have information, kind of a step-by-step process that went over what we just did. So I'll go over to step 1, open this, and inside of the React example, not the React starter, in the example, you'll see that it actually has a base project for you guys to use, and it actually has a README here with a README here with steps on how to do it. I'll actually put it up in GitHub so you can see it better. And then week 3. And I just created this thing here. It goes through up here at the top, how you can run it on your own. And then if you're curious and you want to play around on your own, how you can create it. And this goes through an exact step-by-step process that tells you exactly how I create. There's a lot of words, maybe wrote a little too much. But it goes through a basic thing, how to get started, how to get set up, even some basic core principles that I just went over. We can go to the second step, which is actually creating a component. It goes through the process, and you can see how this kind of just guides you a little bit. It's a good reference material if you don't want to watch the video and you're confused or you're lost. It's just a nice little guide. And yeah, is anyone here actually cloning it live? And if you are, did you run into any problems? Cool.
So React is kind of the core of what we use. We use to make all of the visual stuff on our page. So you're using a lot of it. Those of you in the core will be using it on Tuesday. And now we have kind of all of the coding tools necessary to actually start on a project. I think what's left to cover in the learning based project?
MongoDB,
MongoDB and API stuff, or
probably. We'll do some APIs.
we've almost covered just about all of the tools that we use so far, and then at the end, it's kind of going to be best practices and common patterns you see when coding.
Yeah, and that stuff really helps you read other people's React code, and it makes your stuff look a lot nicer, and it helps you build some really cool stuff. Those of you that were at my meeting on Wednesday, I did mention that React is super easy to get really complicated projects off the ground very quickly. So if you guys are thinking, oh, I have this awesome idea for an app, and you're in 101 right now doing Java, it would be kind of a pain to actually build it in Java. With this, it's actually fairly easy to build applications at a pretty decent scale. So it's a cool little tool. Definitely recommend looking into it. And those of you in the projects, you'll certainly be using it.
I guess we'll cut it off there. We'll stick around here if you have any questions. Of course, I encourage you to play around with this. You kind of create some components of your own. It's a lot easier to demonstrate if you can code something and then see the result of it. And of course, you can ask us questions at any time in the Discord.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, guys. What'd you say?
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.